Doctors concluded today that Jimmy Garoppolo does not need foot surgery. It is not a Lisfranc injury, and he has the chance now to be back in 7 to 8 weeks, making it possible that if the 49ers go on an extended run, they potentially could get Jimmy Garoppolo back later this postseason if they're alive. Now, it's hard to imagine that because if they're alive in the postseason, that means that Brock Purdy must be playing pretty well, so they would be faced with a difficult decision. But this is a team that's already lost 2 quarterbacks to 2 significant injuries this year. First Trey Lance, now Jimmy Garoppolo. But the report from the doctors today was much more optimistic and upbeat than the one that was sounded on Sunday night after the game when doctors thought he would be out 6 months, when he would need surgery on the broken foot. The foot is broken, but it's possible now that he could be back in 7 to 8 weeks, something we'll be watching and monitoring in the weeks ahead.
That's big.
Really interesting, right? I mean, here's the thing, and Adam, thank you for that news. We've got more coming from you as we've had breaking news on Baker Mayfield as well as Jimmy Garoppolo here. I want to lay this out really fast, guys. So 7 to 8 weeks, you got to think the early side would be the 7 weeks. They got the Buccaneers, they got the Seahawks, they have the Commanders, the Raiders, and the Cardinals coming up. You think about the schedule that Brock Purdy's going to have to deal with because they've decided that's who they're sticking with at quarterback. You said it's huge for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
You first, Marcus. Why?
I think just even the possibility that you'll get him back in the stretch run, right? So as players, obviously, when we get news like this, the rehab becomes crazy vigilant, right? If it was a Lisfranc, you kind of like, man, let me take my time, let me process this and figure out. This puts Jimmy right back in the mindset, like, I'm going to be back on the field, maybe in critical moments, right? And then, too, like we've talked about this offense not being so quarterback dependent, so it's not like Jimmy G can't come back inserting, he's going to be asked to carry the 49ers throughout a Super Bowl or even late in the playoffs. This is huge news, too, in this regard. Beyond this season, remember last year, Jimmy trade possibility was halted because of the shoulder, right? So now if he would have went into another offseason with the potential of going or landing a trade spot in a new deal, now you got a Lisfranc, you got another 6 months for teams to evaluate.
Let's live in this world, hypothetical world. They go 4-1 over the next 5, and they win games like with Brock Purdy, not because of Brock Purdy.
Right.
What do they do then?
Like
if Jimmy G is back in 7 weeks, because here's the reality too, and I think this benefits Brock Purdy as this team likely gets into the playoffs. The playoffs started for them this past weekend, essentially.
Absolutely.
That was an insertion into a playoff game. Now, you guys know playoff. You certainly do know the environment of a playoff game, and
that was very much like it, though.
Right?
The stakes were high.
Don't you think? And don't you think that every week is going to feel that way for him? Maybe not exactly.
If this team goes 4-1, and if this team is amid a playoff run, you hope Jimmy G comes back, but your hope is you don't want to put him in the game.
Right.
If Jimmy G comes, and I mentioned, if the San Francisco 49ers go on a run right now, we haven't seen a run like this with a quarterback like that since Tom Brady. I would treat it exactly the same way. If Jimmy G comes back, he's sitting right where Drew Bledsoe had to sit when he watched Tom Brady win a Super Bowl. You want Brock Purdy to be inserted into this non-quarterback captive offense, play extremely well, and have you in a position to win because of him. And now it makes it easier to finish the game, and you still know you have Jimmy G as a backup.
You know, Dan, I realize it's a small sample size, right? We've seen Brock Purdy in college. We've talked about it. He's a guy that, you know, can sort of handle his business. He's a professional, but maybe there's a reason why you're Mr. Irrelevant, right? I'm not trying to diminish the guy's talent. You saw him for 3 quarters professionally. Is he good enough with what's around him to have the success? I laid out the schedule. Some of these games seem winnable to me based on their roster as a whole.
Who do they play 2 weeks from now? I know Tampa this next week.
Let me load
2
it
weeks
back
from
up.
now, I think you
I got it on my phone.
No,
so we got Buccaneers, we've got Seahawks, and we've got Commanders.
Seattle. And I think like this past week, you watched him operate the offense. He changed plays at the line of scrimmage. He ran their play action game. He handled pressures. But that is going to be a completely different world when you're down 24-17 than up 24-17. They were in the comfort of a lead. So did you like everything you saw? Absolutely. If he plays that way for the remainder, will they be just fine? Absolutely. But they don't know until he's in that moment what he's like when, oh my gosh, it's 3rd and 7, and I got to throw an in route versus 2-man coverage, and the guy is you know, I'm the receiver and RC's right here. Yeah. That's when you find out.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.